There is a moment, usually around day 2 or 3, when something strange happens. Your head starts to pound. Your mood turns dark. You feel tired in a way that sleep does not fix, irritable in a way you cannot explain, and desperate for something sweet in a way that feels almost physical. Most people assume this means quitting sugar was a mistake. They assume their body is telling them to stop. But here is what is actually happening. Your body is not breaking down, it is breaking free. And what unfolds over the next 14 days, quietly, invisibly, inside your cells and your brain and your gut, is one of the most dramatic physiological transformations you can trigger without ever stepping foot in a hospital. Most people do not realize how deeply sugar has woven itself into the way their body functions. Not just their diet, their biology, their hormones, their brain chemistry, their energy systems. When you remove it, even for just 2 weeks, your body has to completely reorganize the way it generates power, manages hunger, regulates mood, and repairs itself. And that process is far more fascinating and far more impactful than most people ever understand. So let us go through it together, day by day, change by change, starting from the moment you put down the last sugary thing you ate and following your body all the way through 14 days of transformation. When you eat sugar, especially refined sugar and high fructose sweeteners, your body responds almost immediately. The sugar enters your bloodstream, and your blood glucose rises fast, sometimes dramatically, depending on how much you consumed. In response, your pancreas releases a hormone called insulin. Think of insulin as a delivery driver. Its job is to take that glucose from your blood and move it into your cells, so it can be used as energy or stored for later. The system works, but it works at a cost. The faster and higher blood sugar rises, the more insulin is released. And over time, with repeated sugar spikes throughout the day, the cells start to become less responsive to insulin's knocking. They begin to tune it out. This is called insulin resistance, and it is quietly happening in tens of millions of people who have no idea. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When you quit sugar, even just for the first 24 to 48 hours, you interrupt this cycle completely. The delivery driver suddenly has far less cargo to move. Blood glucose stops spiking, insulin levels drop, and your body, deprived of its usual fast fuel, begins to look for something else to burn. By the end of day 1, most people feel fine, a little different maybe, a little restless. There might be a mild craving, but nothing overwhelming. This is the calm before the storm. Day 2 is where things start to shift. Depending on how much sugar and processed carbohydrate was in your previous diet, your body is now running lower on its stored glucose reserves, a substance called glycogen that lives primarily in your liver and muscles. As glycogen depletes, your brain notices, and the brain does not like uncertainty about its fuel supply. It sends out signals. It wants more glucose, and it wants it now. This is when the cravings begin to feel urgent. This is when a craving stops being a preference and starts feeling like a need. At the same time, something is happening neurochemically. Refined sugar triggers a release of dopamine in the brain, the same reward chemical involved in pleasure, motivation, and yes, addiction. Not in the extreme way that hard drugs affect the brain, but in a real, measurable, behavioral way. Your brain has learned that sugar means reward. And when the reward disappears, the brain reacts the way any reward-dependent system reacts when the reward is taken away. It protests. This is why day 2 and day 3 can feel emotionally heavy. Irritability, low mood, difficulty concentrating, even a mild headache or physical fatigue. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs that your brain is recalibrating its reward pathways. The withdrawal is real, and the science fully supports that. By day 3, many people hit what feels like a wall. Energy is low. Motivation is low. The mental fog is thick. If you have ever tried quitting sugar before and gave up around this point, this is probably why. But here is what most people do not know. Somewhere between day 3 and day 5, your body quietly makes a decision that changes everything. With glycogen stores running low and no surge of dietary sugar incoming, your body begins to ramp up a process called fat oxidation. It starts pulling energy from stored body fat. Fatty acids are broken down and converted into fuel. Some of those fatty acids become molecules called ketones, which your brain can actually use as an alternative to glucose. The furnace shifts from burning sugar to burning fat. And the first time this shift reaches a meaningful level, something remarkable happens. The fog begins to clear. This transition does not feel like fireworks. It feels more like a window being opened after months of stale air. By day 4 or 5, a growing number of people report that their energy starts to feel more even, more sustained. The sharp peaks and crashes of a sugar-driven energy cycle begin to flatten out. Instead of needing a sweet snack to get through the afternoon, the body starts drawing steadily from its own reserves. And those reserves, even in lean individuals, contain far more available energy than glycogen ever could.
Your appetite is also changing. One of the most underestimated effects of sugar is what it does to hunger-regulating hormones. Specifically, it suppresses a hormone called leptin and elevates a hormone called ghrelin. In simple terms, it tricks your body into feeling hungrier than it actually is and less satisfied than it should be. As sugar leaves the picture, these hormonal signals begin to recalibrate. Around days 5 through 7, many people notice something unexpected. They are simply not as hungry. They can go longer between meals without the frantic urgency they used to feel. This is not willpower. This is hormonal biology correcting itself. By the end of the first week, something else is happening deep inside the gut. The trillions of microorganisms that live in your digestive system, collectively called the gut microbiome, respond rapidly to dietary changes. Sugar and processed carbohydrates feed certain types of bacteria, including strains that can promote inflammation and contribute to bloating, gas, and digestive discomfort. When sugar is removed, these bacteria lose their main food source. Meanwhile, beneficial bacteria that thrive on fiber and whole foods begin to gain ground. The shift in gut flora by the end of week 1 is already measurable, and the effects reach much further than digestion. The gut microbiome communicates directly with the brain through a pathway called the gut-brain axis. As the balance of bacteria improves, many people notice subtle but real shifts in mood stability and mental clarity. Your gut and your brain are in constant conversation, and what you feed one, you feed the other. Around day 7 to 10, the changes become more visible. Inflammation is one of the most significant and most overlooked effects of chronic sugar consumption. Sugar drives the production of inflammatory compounds throughout the body. It disrupts the lining of blood vessels. It activates immune responses that were never meant to run constantly in the background. When you remove the sugar, inflammation levels begin to drop. And as they do, some people notice changes they were not expecting. Skin that was persistently puffy or red may start to clear. Joint stiffness that was always just there may begin to ease. Digestion that was chronically uncomfortable may settle down. These are not coincidences. They are early signs that the inflammatory response is being dialed back. Your skin is worth spending a moment on here because it tells a surprisingly clear story about what is happening internally. High sugar intake triggers a process called glycation, where sugar molecules bind to proteins in the skin, including collagen and elastin, and damage them. This process accelerates the breakdown of the structures that keep skin firm, smooth, and resilient. It also contributes to acne in many people by driving hormonal fluctuations and increasing sebum production. Within 1 to 2 weeks of eliminating sugar, glycation slows dramatically. Skin hydration often improves. Breakouts that seemed chronic may begin to subside.
The skin is like a window into what is happening in the deeper tissue, and by the end of week 2, that window tends to look noticeably different. By days 10 through 12, the insulin sensitivity conversation is worth revisiting. Remember how your cells had begun to tune out insulin signal? That process begins to reverse. With less sugar flooding the bloodstream, insulin is released in smaller, more appropriate amounts. The cells that had become resistant start responding better. Blood sugar regulation becomes more efficient. For most healthy people, meaningful improvements in insulin sensitivity can be detected within just 1 to 2 weeks of removing added sugar from the diet. This matters enormously because insulin resistance is the foundation of type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and a wide range of cardiovascular conditions. 2 weeks of lower sugar intake does not undo years of damage, but it does begin the process of repair. Your liver is also undergoing a significant transformation during this period. One of the liver's many jobs is to process fructose, the specific type of sugar found in table sugar and high fructose corn syrup. The liver is actually the only organ that can handle fructose in significant quantities. When fructose arrives in large amounts, the liver converts the excess into fat. Over time, with chronically high sugar intake, this fat accumulates in the liver itself, a condition called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which affects a staggering percentage of the population. Within 2 weeks of reducing sugar, the liver begins clearing some of this accumulated fat. Liver enzyme levels in many individuals begin to normalize. The organ that was quietly working overtime starts to breathe again. By day 12, most people have also noticed a change in how they experience taste. This is one of the most fascinating adaptations of the entire 2-week process. When sugar is consumed constantly and in high quantities, the taste receptors responsible for detecting sweetness become desensitized. Food has to be extremely sweet to register as sweet at all. This is why people who eat a lot of processed food often find whole fruit insufficiently sweet, and why natural flavors can taste flat or bland. After 12 to 14 days without added sugar, those receptors recalibrate. They become more sensitive. Suddenly, a piece of fruit tastes genuinely sweet. A roasted vegetable has flavor dimensions you never noticed before. Your palate begins to reconnect with the actual taste of food, not just the artificial intensity of processed sweetness. This shift is not just pleasant, it changes the entire experience of eating. By day 14, you have completed one of the most impactful 2-week dietary experiments a person can undertake. Let us take stock of what your body has done. Your blood sugar levels are steadier and more predictable. Your insulin sensitivity has improved. Your gut microbiome has shifted toward a healthier balance. Inflammation markers have started to fall. Your liver is processing fat more efficiently. Your skin may be clearer and less inflamed. Your appetite hormones are functioning closer to their intended design. Your brain is producing more stable dopamine signals instead of riding the sharp spikes and crashes of the sugar reward cycle. And your energy, for many people, feels fundamentally different. Quieter, more even, more reliable, like a steady current instead of a flickering light. None of this means sugar is a poison that must be permanently eliminated from every human life. Context matters. Whole food sources of natural sugar, like fruit, carry fiber and micronutrients that change how the body processes them. Occasional consumption of added sugar in an otherwise healthy diet is a very different physiological situation than chronic daily excess. The science is not black and white, but what 14 days without sugar makes undeniably clear is just how profoundly and quickly the body responds to its removal. The systems that sugar had been quietly burdening begin to recover faster than most people expect. And that recovery is not subtle. Most people who complete 14 days without added sugar describe the change not as a diet result, but as a physical transformation. They feel it in their energy, in their mood, in their clarity, in their hunger, and in their skin. Your body has extraordinary capacity to reset, repair, and recalibrate. It just needs the space to do it. 14 days is not forever, but 14 days without sugar might change the way you understand your body for the rest of your life. If this video gave you something to think about, take a moment to share it with someone you know who has ever wondered what sugar is really doing to them. There's a good chance they need to hear exactly what you just heard.